Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Today, I want to talk about you and me. Talk about us as parents and our brains and our minds. But before we get into that, I'm very excited about what we're talking about. Before we get into that, I do want to clarify something that I said a few weeks ago that some of y'all have reached out to me and said, "What do I do?" So remember when I had mentioned that part of what we do to prepare for the upcoming school year is my kids choose 12 books. My older kids actually choose more than that, but my younger ones, my 12-year-old choose they choose 12 books, and we try to read one book a month for their quiet reading time, and then we have our read alouds that we do together. And the question has come like, but my kids don't know what they don't know, which is good. And I needed to clarify a little bit about what I do, especially for like Jacob. Like Kara, who's 8, I picked the books. Now, this is the funny thing is yesterday we went to the library and she decided she wanted some more books for her quiet reading time. And so she picked some more books. Some of them are definitely above her reading level and definitely above her age level and appropriateness there. And so we had to put some back. And Katie was really funny because she was with us. Katie's 16. And Katie's like, I'm going to read some of these, Mom, and I'm going to read a couple of these because they look really interesting. And then I'll let you know if they're good for Kara to read or not. Or if they'd be good for read aloud or not. And I'm like, thanks, Katie. That saves me a little bit of time. But with Jacob, so Jacob doesn't love quiet reading time. I have to be honest. Like I ask him to do it. He does it. He does it somewhat begrudgingly, but he does it. So when choosing his books, I went to our little downstairs library. As I've mentioned before, since homeschooling, I've become a little bit of a book hoarder. I'm trying to curb that addiction. I also have an addiction to towels. So we all have our things. Towels and books are mine. But we have all these books at home. And then there's other books like that. I went to the library. I picked out a bunch of books that I thought would be good for him that we didn't have. And then I took him to our downstairs library. I narrowed down the books and I chose a bunch of books and I was like, Jacob, for quiet reading time, I'm going to choose 5 books that you're going to read and you can choose the other 7. And he's like, oh, fine. So I gave him, like I had narrowed down a bunch of books to kind of guide him in that direction. And this week, and he's been dragging his feet on choosing the books, and we're starting to back to official, like more of a routine next week. And so I was like, Jacob, we're running out of time. Pick your books. And so this week he went through and he chose a couple of the books that I had chosen, that I had in the stack that he could choose from. And then he's like, can I choose something different? And I'm like, fine, you can. And you have to understand, Jacob is a sweet kid and he's an amiable kid, and people love him because he's very quiet. He's a little impish, but he's very quiet, but he gets along, and he's a pretty amiable kid for the most part. And so he only gets that way mostly with me, where he's like, ugh. But we have a great relationship anyway, still. And so I said, Jacob, do you want to choose, like from the shelf and from some of the bookshelves? And he's like, yes. And Katie was helping me choose some books too. And I'm like, okay. So he mostly chose his books from the ones that I narrowed down. He chose some from there. And then he went to the bookshelves and we went to the library and he kind of went through and picked some books. And with some of the books, I had to read the back and I'm like, okay, let me look and see what, if there's anything questionable in these books, because some of the books I hadn't read. And then Katie helped him as well. So Katie was really funny because she took some of the books and was like, okay, let me read you the first 3 sentences of each of these books, and you tell me which one sounds the most interesting. And I'm like, way to go, Katie. So she did that, and he picked Percy Jackson, the first one, as one of them. And then the rest of the book, the rest of the books that he picked for the rest of his 7 that he had to choose for himself were based on the cover. So that's how he chose his books. So I don't want you to think that I'm like, okay, children, go and choose your stories because you're all so well read. Nah, it's not like that. Let's be honest. Our house is more real than that, right? And my kids are still kids, and they still behave like kids. They are not perfect. And so a couple of the books he chose all of the Great Brain series again for the umpteenth time. And I had him put them back, and I said, Jacob, you read the Great Brain series like 3 times last year, this past school year. We're not revisiting the Great Brain again. Okay. You're going to move on and do some more literature. So then, and I have to be honest, because some of the books he picked were really short books. And I'm like, no, that's like Kara's reading level. Pick something harder. And he's like, fine. I did let him keep. I said, you can have one short book. That's fine. But you need longer books, and choose some interesting ones. So we did it. We made the list. And we're ready to go and gearing up for the new school year for his quiet reading time. Katie was like, I have far more than 12 to read. Her goal is to finish reading 50 books by the end of December. And she's on book like 26, and she and 2 friends are in a competition. And so for her, like, they're getting through these books as fast as possible. And these friends don't live here. They live in different states. They're friends that moved. And so it's been kind of funny watching them as she's like, she's ahead of me. How did she read that faster than me? And then they have great discussions about the books when they do finish. And that's been a delight for my mama heart to go, look, my daughter loves literature, and now she's sharing it with 2 of her closest friends, and they discuss the books and what they like and what they don't like, and all of that good stuff. So I did want to clarify that you don't have to go, okay, children, what books do you want to read? You can pick a bunch of books and then say, hey, here's some books. Let me read you the first 3 lines of each book, or you look at the covers. Which ones look interesting to you? All right, those are the books that we're going to read. And if it's 12 is too daunting for you, it's okay. Do less than that. It's fine. It's okay. There are no hard and fast rules, my friends. We homeschool. So we get to make the decisions, as we should, because we're the parents. Okay, so I did want to clarify that just right at the beginning. And I also want to thank those of y'all who have left really kind reviews. I appreciate it. It increases the algorithm, and so it pushes the podcast out to other people like you who need and who this podcast can benefit from. And if you do know people who are looking to leave the school system and they're scared, and you find my podcast valuable, please share it with other people. If you don't find it valuable, fine, move along, listen to a different podcast. That's all I have to say about that. So thank you to those of you who have left kind reviews and have shared it with other people. I sincerely want to help as many people as possible. And so, I don't get money from the school system. I'm not getting paid by anybody. Like, for me to do this podcast, I pay out of pocket to do this podcast because I want to help as many people as possible. People often ask me, like, are you making millions of dollars? No, I'm making nothing currently. Someday I'm going to make something. But as of today, I am paying out of pocket to host this podcast, to do all of the things. And I also have been accused, so of receiving money from the school system for my kids to homeschool, which is absolutely preposterous. My kids do go to a state-funded enrichment program, but I pay taxes. I pay a lot in taxes. And I pay for other people's children to go to public school, and they get thousands and thousands of dollars for all the public school kids. And in our state, all homeschool kids have a right to go to an enrichment program that is state funded. And so we do utilize that, but I don't see a dime from the state to homeschool. Everything we do, minus the enrichment program, is 100% out of pocket for us. And so we have to be very choosy about what we do because we don't have unlimited funds and resources. And I have 6 children. So there's that. Okay. So again, thank you for those of y'all who have shared the podcast and who have given me very kind reviews. So with that. Oh, also, if you want to know what Jacob and Kara and Katie's book lists are, I'm happy to share them with you. Just hit me up on Facebook or on the School to Homeschool Facebook page, which is there to be a resource for you. So yeah, hit me up and I can share those book lists with you if you're interested. Okay, so let's get into the subject that we want to talk about today, which is our own growth, our own learning as parents. And I want to start with this by sharing a little bit about my life. So thank you for indulging with me as I've shared about my life throughout this podcast. It's a little nerve-wracking sharing such personal things with strangers, but if I can help anybody, that's what matters to me. So, back when I got married and started having kids, when I got married, I was approaching 20. I was 28 and a half, approaching 29. And then I got pregnant right away. A year and a couple months. I had Joshua. I had taken on Cameron and James, and we had full custody. And then a year later, I had Katie. And then a few years later, I had Jacob. So 2014, I'm just doing the stay-at-home mom thing. And my husband is working really, really hard. And we get to the point where he had grown enough. He had grown his real estate team and then decided he wanted to open his own brokerage. Now, at the time, I felt pretty like I was happy being a mom, but I felt to some degree like in some ways I was kind of stuck. And I had come growing up, my parents never told me that I was dumb. They always told me how smart I was and that I had a great mind. I wish the school system was that way. Unfortunately, I did have teachers that flat out told my mom that they thought I was special needs and that I was an idiot. Thank you, second grade, Mrs. Schwanke, who has probably passed away, so she's not going to hear this podcast because she was old when I was in second grade. And so I had this stigmatism in my own head that I was not smart. And then I had a beautiful fifth grade teacher, Miss Binder, who I wish was still alive. I would be surprised if she was, just because, she'd be quite old now. But Mrs. Binder would reinforce that I was smart and capable and all of those things. And in many ways, I feel like she was an angel in my life. But I had more teachers that were discouraging than were encouraging, And I had some, like all of you, I had some amazing teachers. I mean, just some amazing angel teachers. And then there were some teachers that were like, why are you teaching? Like, why? You should not be with kids. But I, like most of us do, I held on to the negative. And maybe not most of us. I can't speak for you, but I held on to the negative all growing up rather than always listening to the positive, even though I'd come back to the positive, I'd come back to the kind things and the good things that my parents would say about me and about how hard I worked at stuff and all that. And I'd come back to Miss Binder, and I'd come back to Miss Whiteside, who was my senior English teacher. I'd come back to the kind things that they'd say. But then in the back of my head was always that negative. You're not smart enough. You shouldn't be in the top reading group. That's why you're in the lowest reading group. Because reading as a child for me was a great struggle. It took me a long time to learn to read. And so I always believed that I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't a reader. I wasn't all these things. And this was a constant battle, even all through college, even though, like, deep down, that part of me that knows that I'm a child of God was still like, no, like, you're capable, right? It was a perpetual battle within my brain of, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not all these. And no, you are capable of great things. And there's a seed of greatness in you. And you're a child of God, and you have this unlimited potential. So there's this constant battle inside of my head. And so college was tough because that negative started coming out. I'm not as smart as so-and-so. I am not doing as well. And I had some amazing professors. And then I had some kind of ruthless professors in college. And I graduated, but when I graduated, I left believing that I was subpar. I wasn't the best costume designer in my program. I knew that. I also realized that I didn't love costume design enough to do it for the rest of my life. I didn't want to move to LA. I didn't want to move to New York. I didn't want to move to Chicago. I was not the best seamstress. Pattern drafting was a hard class for me. It's probably the hardest class I've ever taken. And everyone that I knew who took it also said the same thing. It was way harder than any of the science classes that I took in college. But I came out of there believing that I wasn't that smart. And I kind of stopped progressing and learning, I feel like, in that after college. I, at the time, didn't know about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, right? That ideology, that terminology wasn't around when I guess it had started to come out when I was leaving college, or shortly after I left college. But I want to talk about that today. What is a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, and how does that relate to us? Okay, so I get married. I have kids. I was a teacher, I was a recruiter, I did all those things. And I get married. I became a stay-at-home mom. I had these 2 little boys that I was suddenly raising. I left my job, and that was kind of my life. It became kind of static, and I loved it, and I felt static. I felt like I had kind of stopped growing here with my brain. And so something shifted, though, in 2014. And that is, we decided to open a brokerage. I got very brave. My husband and I had been talking about, I didn't sell real estate. I was just trying to take care of the kids. I had by 2014, I had teenagers, and they were tough, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I also had a toddler and everything in between. And Kara wasn't even on the scene yet. And we decide, my husband's like, I need to keep growing in our business. And the next step is to either start my own brokerage or to buy a franchise for the company that we're at. And so he said, or we could do a satellite office. And so he asked me if I could reach out to find out about how much it would cost to do a satellite office with the big box company that we were with at the time, which was a big one, and the real estate company. But instead, I decided to do something kind of brave. And I called the head of franchising for the company. Instead of finding out about a satellite office for the same brokerage we were with, I thought, what if we just open our own brokerage? And so I did that, and And I was really proud of myself for being brave because it was very scary. So I called him, left a message. He calls back, lets me know they're not selling any brokerages, that our current market, where in Colorado Springs, was saturated. But if he decided, he would call me back. I actually didn't tell my husband for a few weeks that I had called about getting a franchise. I was nervous because I was worried that he'd be like, "What? Oh my gosh, no, we just want a satellite office. We can't do it." He wasn't shocked. He was like, "Oh, that's really cool. Thanks for doing that. That's awesome. Way to go." 6 months later, the franchise guy calls me on my cell phone while I was cooking dinner and says, "Do you still want that franchise?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "There's 10 realtors that want it. And we're going to give it to one." And so within 24 hours, we had submitted to him a business plan, our financials, and all this stuff. And then within 2 weeks, we had purchased a franchise and opened a brokerage. And that's where it kind of started, where I realized that I could still grow, that I wasn't stupid, and that I could still grow. And as I'm helping my husband plan for this franchise, I realized I started thinking, I really want a good culture and all these things. And I happened upon a magazine article about culture and Apple and Google and all these different things. And the article had listed in it all these books. Now, remember, I don't consider myself a reader. I hadn't read a book except for like the Twilight series and Harry Potter for, at this point, it had been years. And I didn't consider myself particularly smart. I figured I was dumb in business. I figured, I was dumb in psychology. Like these were the things that I came to believe about myself, which honestly were false. Like they were false ideas. But I see this book list and I decide that I want to read these books. So, and the article had referenced all these different books. So I start with the first one and I go to the library and I pick it up, and they had the CDs of it. So I started listening to it in the car and I loved it. It was called Switch by Dan and Chip Heath. And I loved it. I loved the book. And suddenly my soul started to totally expand, and my mind, like, it was so exciting to me to think about these things. And then I started talking to my husband about growth and what we could do and all these things. And I went through that entire book list. I don't remember all the rest of the books that were on that list. I do remember Predictably Irrational by a behavioral economist, Dan Ariely, was on the list. And I love that book as well. I'll put these in the show notes because they're super fascinating books. But I started to read nonfiction books, which I hadn't done since college. And even then, it was textbooks that I was reading. And something shifted in me, y'all. Like, something beautiful shifted in me. I started realizing that I wasn't stupid and that I wasn't dumb, and that I could still learn new things. And it was so delicious to my soul to realize, like, it was beautiful to learn, right? For me, as an adult woman, not in college, not learning because I had to, not learning for a grade, not learning for a degree, learning because I wanted to learn, reading because I wanted to read, to read. And I rediscovered, well, I guess I discovered for the first time that I loved reading. What? Like, and it was amazing. And I just, like, my soul felt so excited. And that, that continued on. And that's when I started learning about, like, a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So I want to talk about that a little bit as it relates to you and I. And if you've never heard these terms, this is your introduction. And I'll put resources in the show notes so you can read more about them. The term initially came from Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, which was published, I think, in 2005. Anyway, I'll put it in the show notes. But essentially, this is from Psychologue, Psychology Behind Hard Work. This is an article. And this is what they say. An individual with a growth mindset believes that their intelligence and abilities can be developed through effort, learning, and perseverance. A growth mindset allows one to make mistakes and learn from them, persevere in the face of challenges, embrace constructive criticism and feedback, find inspiration in others' success, and embrace challenges. On the contrary, an individual with a fixed mindset limits themselves by avoiding challenges, giving up easily, feeling threatened by others' success, and desiring to appear smart. And I realized that for years, for most of my life, I had a fixed mindset. And what a terrible place to be. What a sad place to be. And I also realized that when we have a growth mindset, it enlarges our souls. It's joyful. It's fun and it's exciting. So this is from Business Insights, Harvard Business School's Online Insights blog, and Catherine Coate wrote this. And this is what she's saying. And this particular article is talking about this in the term of entrepreneurship and building products. But as I was reading this article, I was fascinated how much it applies to us as homeschooling mothers and as mothers and grandparents and caregivers in general. So listen to this. She says, here's a primer on the difference between growth and fixed mindsets, why a growth mindset is essential for entrepreneurship, and how you can achieve and maintain one. Someone with a growth mindset views intelligence, abilities, and talents as learnable and capable of improvement through effort, right? It's not that we were born stupid, but we were born as we are, but we can get better. Amazing. On the other hand, someone with a fixed mindset views those same traits as inherently stable and unchangeable over time, right? That's what I believed for so long. For an example, I go on. An aspiring entrepreneur, here we go. For example, as an aspiring entrepreneur, you need basic financial skills to create your business budget and prepare its financial statements. If you have a fixed mindset, you may think, I've never been good with math, let alone financial statements. I'm not cut out to run my own business. Side note here. I have a child who believes that they are terrible at math. They're actually not terrible at math. But because they struggled with it in school and didn't get good grades, like straight A's in math, they believe they're not good at math. And I realized that's part of the problem with our school system is the system itself teaches children inadvertently fixed mindsets that, okay, I got this grade, therefore I am X, Y, Z, and it's not changeable. Right. And that's not particular teachers doing that. That's the system itself, because I know a lot of teachers who really work hard to try to help children have a growth mindset. And then there's others who get stuck in the fixed mindset. Okay. So now I go on. Now imagine you approach this situation with a growth mindset. You might think, I don't have the background in finance, but I can learn and practice those skills until I feel capable. The concept of growth and fixed mindsets was coined by the psychologist Carol Dweck in her 2006 book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. According to Dweck, this is the book I was just telling you about, challenging situations can be catastrophic for those with fixed mindsets because of the implication that if they don't already have the skills or intelligence to complete a task, there is no chance of improvement. Now, my friends, as I'm reading these articles and I'm thinking about my life, I was thinking about y'all, right? Here you are, moms and grandmas and dads and grandpas and caregivers, and you've believed that the school system's the only way a child's going to learn. And now you're stepping on a limb. You're getting out of your comfort zone, which we're about to talk about in a second. And you're doing a hard thing, and you're learning with your children, and your mindset is a growth mindset that you think, I've received messages from you that you're like, wow, I can do this. And yeah, you can, right? Like, and your minds are expanding as you understand that you can teach your kids and you can help your kids grow to who they need to become. And you're capable. Like, this is amazing. Okay. So it says 4 reasons entrepreneurs need a growth mindset. And I'm going to change entrepreneurs to moms and dads and homeschool parents. Number 1, it allows you to move into new fields. When you have a growth mindset, your past doesn't define your future. This can be an asset if you have expertise and experience in another field and want to pursue entrepreneurship. Okay. So, yeah, even though you may have struggled in school, this does not mean that you cannot teach your kids, right? You're moving into the homeschooling world and you're capable of doing that. Number 2, it fosters resilience. Resilience, the capacity to recover from and move through difficult situation, is critical in the entrepreneurial world. When challenges, setbacks, and failures inevitably arise, your business's survival depends on your ability to persevere and learn from difficult situations. My friends, in this homeschooling journey, one of the things that we deal with all the time as homeschooling parents is that sometimes things don't work. And we get to shift and change. It's not like, okay, well, we send them back to school. That didn't work, therefore I send them back to school. No, we learn from the failures. And in turn, our children are watching us learn from the failures and realizing failure is part of the growth, right? That if something fails, that's a step forward that we go, okay, well, that light bulb experiment didn't work. I guess we're going to try something different, as opposed to throwing the towel in and going, I just can't do it. No, your kids are seeing you fail and then retry. And what a beautiful lesson you're teaching them. Okay. Number 3, it enables you to iterate on your product. Our products, which is a terrible term to use, but they're talking about entrepreneurship. For us as homeschooling parents, our products are our babies, our kids. Like, we want our kids to grow into wonderful, kind, good, productive adults that contribute to society and have beautiful lives, right? That's our product. That's our end goal. That's our marathon that we're running, not our sprint, but our marathon, right? And they say this continual process of testing an idea, learning from the results, and reiterating the product is only possible with a growth mindset. But change the product to your child. This continual process of testing an idea, learning from the results, and reiterating that things can change for your child is only possible with a growth mindset. Okay, so this is what they say then. An entrepreneur with a fixed mindset is likely to view negative feedback as a sign that they don't have the ability to make a valuable product, right? A fixed mindset says, you know what, you're not capable of teaching your kids. Sorry. You're not a licensed teacher. You didn't go through a teacher's college where you learned how to wrangle 32 kids, so you're not capable of teaching year 3 kids, right? That's a fixed mindset, and we have to overcome that. It says this can result in avoiding feedback for fear of rejection, untested products, and a bad product market fit, or giving up on the venture altogether and just sticking it back in the public school system. But then he goes on. By the way, I added that part. An entrepreneur with a growth mindset, on the other hand, receives negative feedback and constructive criticism, those days that are really hard, those days that your kids refuse to do anything, those days that your child falls on the floor crying, and you're crying too, and uses it to improve their product offering. With a growth mindset, uncovering your product's weaknesses doesn't translate in an ability to create a valuable product. Rather, it enables you to create the best version of it for your target market. Let's put that in layman's terms for homeschooling. I don't need to do that because you're smart. I don't want to make you feel stupid, because you're not. But we can change with our kids. And if things don't work with our kids, we can shift and we can move and we can change, and there's going to be times that things don't work. There are. There's going to be times that curriculums don't fit your family. I learned that really fast. Like I said, occasionally I'll use curriculums, but sometimes that's not the best way for my child to learn. Okay. And number 4, and finally, a growth mindset constantly reminds you that there's always more to learn. And by knowing you have the capacity to improve, a growth mindset can keep you humble throughout your entrepreneurial, or I say parental, journey. So there's that. And then they go on to say ways that you can expand your growth mindset. Examples of opportunities are networking and knowledge sharing with other professionals or parents, reading articles and books on topics you're interested in, and brainstorming and problem solving with others to gain new perspectives. That's why we have a Facebook group, my friends, is so that we can grow and learn together. So with that, I want to talk about, with the growth mindset, stepping out of our comfort zones, which is what you're doing right this second, right? Homeschooling is completely swimming upstream. You are a salmon swimming upstream. You are going out of your comfort zones. It is scary. It is nerve-wracking. And yet beauty comes at times from leaving our comfort zone. I want to tell you a little story about my website, which has become the bane of my existence. No, I'm just kidding. I still sometimes like battle with that fixed mindset versus that growth mindset. But a few months ago, we decided, like, I built the website, right? I am not a computer person. I'm not good with computer stuff. It hurts my brain. But we paid for this platform to build the website, and I had all these ideas that I wanted to do. And I figured out how to build the website within this platform, which was a painful process for me. And then my son, James, who's 22, helped as well. But again, that's not his online marketing is his specialty. And not necessarily website design, and design in general is not him. I like design. I like colors and things like that. And I was a costume designer. But I built it and just kind of left it with ambitions to do more with it. Well, a few months ago, we decided to switch platforms to a more robust platform that wasn't quite as expensive. And so it's supposed to be an easy transferring the whole domain and all the pages that we had built, which is not very many, over onto the other platform. So in June, we were working really hard to switch everything over, and James was helping me do this. And he kept saying, "Mom, there's problems, and I can't figure this out. I've been working on it." And I said, "Well, let me take a look at it." So we figured out how to transfer the domain, he and I, and we did. And then the domain wouldn't go live. It just kept coming up as 404 page not found. And so we went back in and we're like, where are all these pages that we built out? Like, we had built out, like, if there's laws and you click on the button and you could see the state laws and things like that. None of those were working. So we spent several weeks trying to figure it out. And my brain was hurting as I'm Googling, like, what do I do? I'm not a computer person. My husband's okay with computers, but he's not really a computer person. I call an IT friend of mine and he's like, what the heck? And so we finally go into the system and we're trying to figure this out. And the first platform had deleted all of the work that we had done. And it took me hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to do it. Deleted everything. And when we realized that, James's heart sunk and he's like, "Mom, you spent hours working on that." And I just started to cry. And I'm like, I'm going to have to rebuild everything. And I don't know how to do website design. And I'm in this new platform. I don't know the software. I don't know how to use it. And my heart just sank, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to just rebuild it because it's all gone. Even though what was there in the first place wasn't great, it was all gone. That, by the way, that's one of the reasons that took so long to get the newsletter out. That, coupled with me being embarrassed by my writing skills. So I decided to pull up my big girl pants and figure it out. And I thought, no, I do not have a fixed mindset. If my children can learn hard things, and I'm watching them on a daily basis struggle and learn how to do hard things like play La Campanella on the piano, then I, at 47 years old, can conquer this stinking website and figure out this software program. And so in the afternoons when the kids were playing or they were in their lessons or whatever, I would go in and I'd watch YouTube videos on how to use this software and how to build a website from scratch. And it was really painful at those first several hours where I'm like, what the heck? Right. And then as I'm going in, and then I'm like, this one YouTube video was only a 30-minute video, but it took me 6 hours to go through it because I'd watch it and then I'd put it on pause and then I'd go in and then I'd try it in the system and be like, okay, do this. Oh, it worked. Okay. Oh no, that didn't work. Okay, wait, rewind. Okay, play it again. 6 hours it took me to get through a 30-minute video. But by the end of that 6 hours, I was doing okay. I wouldn't say great, but I was doing okay. And I was like, huh. And this thought came like, as I'm going through this whole thing, not once, by the way, little side note, did it stop and say, now you need to take a multiple choice test on how to do this thing. No, I was just doing it, right? I had to go in and do it. A multiple choice test wouldn't have let me know I was learning anything. It was the doing that let me know that I was accomplishing something. I'm like, oh, it worked. Okay, now we go on to the next thing. Anyway, so I finish, I get the basic page up, and I'm so excited. And then I thought, okay, so now I have to do the next page, which is helping, you guys when you click to find out what the laws in your state are. And how do I do that? And what do I do? And I started coming up with ideas like, oh, I could do a certain color. I could do a color scheme for my website. So how do I change the colors? Right. And so I'm Googling it, I'm looking it up, and I'm like, oh, I can change. How do I choose colors? How do I, and I actually already kind of knew that because again, I was a costume designer. So I studied the psychology of color and how color works. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm learning all these things. So and then I'm like, how do I send out a newsletter in this system? How do I do this? And James helps me integrate it. Y'all, I finished and I felt like I was a 3-year-old who had just potty trained and gone to the toilet by myself. Like I was ready to put up a star chart for myself. I was I wanted to give myself a trophy. I had left my comfort zone and I was so proud of myself. And since then, I have made tons of more pages that I have not made live yet. Right now, the website is really basic. You can sign up for the newsletter. You can check laws. You can check the basic philosophies. But I have all these other things in my head. Like, I'm like, oh, I could do some really cool things here and there. So stuff is coming. The pages are going to be going live in the next couple of months. But I'm still building them out and I'm still learning. And y'all, it's been so exciting for me to go from I don't know how to build a website to my 22-year-old saying, Mom, you're kind of good at designing things. What if you did that for somebody else? I'm like, hard no. That's a hard no. It's all I can do to homeschool my kids and get a podcast out every week. This is good. Like, I'm just proud of myself right now, right? And my husband's like, look what you did. And it looks pretty nice. I'm still working on it with mobile view and the navigation bar. Haven't figured all of that out. I'm working on it. My point is that comfort zone, right? That letting go of the fixed mindset and deciding to embrace the growth mindset, it's changed me as a mom. Like, not even as a mom, as a human being, I had this realization, like, I'm smart. And I did something hard. I left my comfort zone. That, like, it was way out of my comfort zone to do anything with a website design. Anything. I'm not a coder. Shoot, Jacob has to help me with stuff when it comes to coding because he knows some of the coding language. I don't. I don't even have a desire to code. But suddenly when I needed to learn how to do it because I had a reason, I did it. And I was really proud of myself. The same principle applies with your kids, by the way. Okay, so let's talk about your comfort zone for just a minute, because moms, you are out of your comfort zone right now, and I know that, and I'm so proud of you. And you're going to do awesome. You're going to fail lots of times. It's okay. Failure is part of the process, and it's a good part. But this is from the Harvard Summer School website. And this is a blog, and it says, is it time to leave your comfort zone? How leaving your comfort zone can spark a positive change. Not just for you, but in your family too. Okay, so the science of comfort zone. It says, I'm going to read this. It's going to take me a little bit. She says, it's by Jessica Kent. So you want to run a 5K. You see a 5K raising money for a good cause, and you've always wanted to run one. So you sign up, but you're not a runner. The most fitness you get is walking between classes. So you know being able to run that 5K is going to take some work and a bit of a challenge. In other words, you'll need to step out of your comfort zone or your place of greatest security and get comfortable in order to achieve that particular goal, which is what you did when you pulled your kids, my friends. I go on with her. How do you know where that boundary is? And is that, quote, comfort zone even a real thing? The idea of comfort zones is rooted in research conducted by psychologists Robert M. Yurts and John Dillingham Dodson in 1908. They developed the Yurts-Dodson law, which states that performance increases as stress increases, right? That's true. And performance decreases as stress decreases. However, at a certain point, high levels of stress inhibit performance. Now, in the context of our 5K example, this means that while you may just want to walk on a treadmill to train, there's not much stress in doing so, and therefore no increase in performance. However, when you apply stress by upping the speed on the treadmill, it gets a little harder and you have to jog. Now you're actually training, but setting the speed of the treadmill too high to start won't be beneficial and may result in injury or propelling you off the treadmill altogether. Do you see how this relates to homeschooling? You've decided to run a 5K with your kids. Actually, it's not even a 5K, it's a marathon. But you're going to have to train for it. And by setting too high of expectations for yourselves and for your kids, that will guarantee failure. But starting little and then slowly moving up, you're going to get there. Okay, so it says the benefits of leaving your comfort zone. As you train for your 5K, you can see how speeding up your walking pace and pushing yourself to jog, getting outside your comfort zone can help you develop the fitness, stamina, and mental fortitude to run your race. But there are a number of benefits to moving outside your comfort zone and challenging yourself to grow beyond just crossing the finish line. And here are the 5 things that she says. And this, my friends, is what you and I are achieving by leaving our comfort zones, whether that be building a website or pulling your kids from the school system for the very first time or the second time. Look, here's looking at you, Kathy, because you did it for the second time with your granddaughter, right? Number 1, achieving your goals. Not everything you want to achieve in life will be easy. By moving beyond your comfort zone and the growth zone, you'll be able to do just that, grow. By the way, and so will your kids. You'll find yourself becoming more productive, achieving more, and reaching the goals you set for yourself if you're willing to put in the work. It's going to be hard. Homeschooling is hard. Number 2, boosting your self-confidence. Accomplishment brings self-confidence. Boy, do I know that from my website. And by the way, if you go to the website, you're probably going to be like, this is not great. I know, but it's getting better day by day. Especially if you worked hard, challenged yourself, and saw it through. And the boost in self-confidence you get after achieving one goal can push you to achieve more. That's talking to us, my friends. That's talking to you and me. Number 3, expanding your world. Stepping out of your comfort zone means learning new things, which we get to do with our kids, meeting new people. I get to meet you guys, seeing new places and trying new experiences. All of these can serve to help expand your awareness of the world and how you fit into it, and may introduce you to new interests or areas of studies you want to explore. My friends, as we learn with our kids, we get to learn too. Like, not just them. You and I get to keep growing. How exciting is that? Number 4, building your resilience. Challenge yourself to move outside your comfort zone can increase your resilience as well. You'll gain more confidence in how you handle failure or setbacks and become more comfortable with increased levels of stress, anxiety, and uncertainty. And number 5, giving yourself self-agency. Finally, by stepping outside your comfort zone often, you'll learn more about yourself and gain more control over how you want your life to look and what you want to do with it. One of the things that I learned from homeschooling is that I realized I didn't want life to just keep happening to me. I wanted to choose what my life looked like. I wanted to choose what my kids' education would look like. I wanted to choose what our family culture would look like. And by homeschooling, I had the power to do that. She finally goes on to say, how do you know if you need to step out of your comfort zone and push yourself towards something new and new experiences? If you're not growing or learning new things, you're not taking chances in your life. You're not fulfilling your goals or your dreams. If you find yourself wondering why you're not accomplishing things that you want to accomplish, making new friends, getting better grades, then it's time to look at the areas where you might be a little too comfortable and passive. And then she goes on to talk about setting goals and all that stuff. But the reality is, you mama, you, grandma, you, papas, are stepping out of your comfort zones. You are stepping out of that fixed mindset. You're doing it. And by the way, this educational journey for your kids is not just theirs. It's yours too. You're not dead yet. You should still be learning new things. You should still be growing. That's part of the human life experiences, for us to grow and learn and become more than we started with. This is your journey too. And I'm so proud of you for taking it. I'm so proud of you for leaving your comfort zones. You are doing so good. Now, I have a challenge for you for this week. You're already stepping out of your comfort zone by helping your kids, by homeschooling your kids, right? You're already doing that. Here's my challenge. And I want you to let us know in the Facebook group what you've done. Okay, this is your challenge. This week, I want you to do one of the following. You could do all of the following. You could do one of them. But I want you to learn something new. I want you to do something hard. I want you to do something you didn't think you could do. I want you to surprise and delight yourself by doing those things. So maybe it's you try a recipe that you've never tried before. Maybe it's that you haven't read a nonfiction book. Maybe ever. And I challenge you to read a chapter of a nonfiction book. Or better yet, go to the library and pick one up. Maybe it's that you're like, I really need to get my health in order. So I challenge you to go on a walk for 20 minutes one day. I want you to do something new or learn something new or do something that you deemed was hard before. I want you to try it. I want you to. This is my challenge this week. You're already leaving your comfort zone by homeschooling. So what's one more little baby challenge? I want to hear what you've done. I want you to put it in the Facebook group. I want to celebrate together. Facebook group is School to Homeschool, right? Let's celebrate each other's wins, those little baby wins that matter. Maybe it's that you potty trained your child. Maybe it's that, I don't know, it could be any number of things. Maybe it's that you you've always wanted to learn to knit, and you bought needles and some yarn. You did it. You took the first step, right? I want to hear what you've done. Maybe it's that you learn how to do like a whole crochet line thingy. I don't know what those are called. Like, when you do the line, that's pretty much all I can do. I can do straight lines back and forth with crocheting. I'm still learning to knit though. Okay. I want you to learn something new. Like I said, you've already stepped out of your comfort zone by homeschooling. You're already changing from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. You're already in that process, which is awesome. Now I challenge you to do something for yourself. That's hard. I'm so proud of you. You're doing better than you think you are. You got this. We'll talk next week.